This is the 2015 AP Language and Composition FRQ argument essay prompt. We're going to read the context that they provide us and then look at the task that they are assigning us to get a better idea of how we're going to formulate our response. An anthropologist studying first-year students at a university in the United States writes that friendly phrases like, "How are you?" "Nice to meet you," and "Let's get in touch" communicate politeness rather than literal intent. So these phrases have more of a symbolic value rather than a literal meaning. What, if anything, is the value or function of such polite free speech? So we're being tasked with considering this question. What is the value or function? Again, sometimes if you want to make sure you don't get overwhelmed or you lose sight, it helps to paraphrase. Purpose, function, pardon the little math abbreviation there, purpose or function of polite speech. That's what I have to figure out. In a well-written essay, develop your position on the value or function of polite speech in a culture or community with which you are familiar. Use appropriate evidence from your reading, experience, or observations to support your argument. So here it is. We're going to develop a position on the value or function of polite speech in a culture or community with which we are familiar. Key coordinating conjunction, folks. Or. So we might look at the value or the function, and then we might look at the polite speech in a culture or a community. We're not being told and, so you can pare it down and look at one idea in the context of either a culture or a community. So the first thing you have to do is determine, am I going to look at culture or community? Sometimes the two are intertwined, and that's fine as long as you clarify that in a thesis. You might do your school culture, a sports culture, might be your actually family culture within your house, the way that you were raised, things like that. Community, we're going beyond just your geographical location, but what about like a church youth group community, or a certain pathway or program within a high school community? What if it's an online community, a community of video gamers? There are certain things there that we would need to use polite speech in order to operate and to form alliances, things like that. It's got a whole bunch of ideas. You have to figure out which scenario is going to be easiest for you to use in drafting your response. And so for me, this might not come as a surprise to anybody, I'm going to pick the education community. And what I like about this is that I can focus on teachers, staff. I can focus on students and peer relationships. I can focus on actual classroom discussions, things like that. I can focus on campus clubs. I can focus on whatever recess, free time, nutrition time, lunch time, we'll call it downtime interactions. I can focus on sports. I could focus on student government. I'm going to stop my list there, but you can see that we have a lot of options here that we can use when we talk about the value or the function of polite polite speech in the educational community. Now that begs the question, what is going to be our position on the value or function of polite speech? I keep wanting to say free speech, polite speech in an educational community. Well, a couple of things. The value of polite speech equals bridge diverse gaps. Maybe I want to talk about social benefits, and maybe even psychological benefits. So I've got a few different ideas there. Bridge diverse gaps, some social benefits, some psychological benefits. Let's see if we can turn that into a working thesis. And I think we'll say, within the educational community, polite speech serves a valuable function by enabling diverse ideas to come together in a safe space, and by promoting social and psychological benefits. So a tad wordy, but it's a working thesis. I've got my ideas there. Certainly can refine it as I begin drafting my response to this. Okay. So I want to make this a 4-paragraph response because it's my final essay. I might not have a lot of time. So I'm going to divide it up as bridge diverse gaps, and then I'll pair social and psychological benefits. For my first body paragraph, bridge diversity, a few different things that we might want to put here. There's cultural diversity. Obviously, there's age diversity between students and staff. This might lead to tolerance and multiple perspectives in terms of a class discussion or something like that. And that's actually something that I might want to talk about. And I think as part of my evidence here, I'm actually going to use historical evidence, and I'm going to go back to Socrates and his Socratic seminar. And really, I can bring that full scale because many teachers still practice Socratic seminar in their classes today. You guys may have actually been involved in them at some point in your education. But this idea that we use polite speech to communicate, let me put that, use polite speech to communicate our ideas, and then to agree or disagree. And if you really want to show off a little bit, use the language of the AP, defend or challenge the ideas of others without being offensive, without having to resort to insults or put downs or anything like that. What is the effect of this? It leads to greater security within this environment, within this community. You feel safe, that you are able to share your honest feelings, your honest perspectives without fear of any sort of retribution. Okay, so there are some ideas for bridging diversity there with polite speech. Certainly, you might say an environment, if we're looking at like cultural or ethnic diversity, you wouldn't want an environment where people went around and instead of saying hello, issued racial slurs. That would be inflammatory. That would certainly make for a really hostile environment. And I'll just jot that down in case you wanted to put that in as a counter or a concession. Racial slurs equal inflammatory and hostile. Okay. So there are some general ideas for my first body paragraph. What is the function? The function is to bridge diversity. How does it bridge diversity? It enables people to work together, to get to know one another, to establish a pleasant environment where you feel safe communicating ideas, disagreeing. That would be a big thing. These are all ways that you're going to explain how polite speech functions to bridge diverse gaps. I should write gaps here just so you don't get confused, okay? What else could we do? For body paragraph number 2, this might be where we look at social, psychological benefits Sometimes my pen goes a little faster than my mind, so begging your pardon. What are some of the social and the psychological benefits? If you're using polite speech, you're going to have greater interaction. People will respond to you if you use polite speech. They will not respond to you if you don't. So this can lead to, that's an arrow, greater socialization, and even networking. Believe it or not, networking begins a lot earlier than what you think. And that would be positive. Speaking of positive speech imbues any environment with, you guessed it, positivity. So people will be happy. And if they are happy, they will be healthy because they are less stressed. Okay? And this will tie in our social to our psychological, where you might feel more of a team environment or a family because you have established this safe space in which to conduct yourself, ask questions, seek help. And I'm going to write that: ask questions, seek help, things like that. Psychologically, that would actually increase confidence and really actually increase leadership abilities. Okay. Some examples that you might give here, teachers and staff who are working together to share lessons, they actually, in the social, let me change colors for just a moment. In the social realm of teaching, teachers share feedback, insight, lessons, things like that. You might have, for example, a new teacher who seeks a veteran teacher's input because a lesson didn't go as planned. And using polite speech, the veteran teacher might encourage the new teacher, help build that confidence, give some feedback, and then you've established a professional relationship, a mentor-mentee relationship, all because you're using positive speech. Now, this would actually parallel peer-to-peer relations for students, especially students who are seeking feedback or help. It could cut down on a really cutthroat competitive environment where students are so fixated on what score did you get, what score did you get, as opposed to, oh, you know, you got a much higher score than I did. How did you do that? What did you study? I need to figure out what I'm doing wrong. And then you really have this environment that becomes more about help and less about harm. Okay, so in this way, it can shift the entire environment. Now, what might we do as either a counter or a concession here? We're focusing so much on positive speech, but we don't want to conclude with this idea that it's got to be all positive all the time, because that's not realistic. So something that we might use as a concession or as a counter, positive speech has to be used with restraint. Because you don't want it to become, you don't want anything fake. You don't want your positive speech to come off as demeaning or insincere or fraudulent, because maybe you're feeling angry and instead, you know, I'm doing fine, how are you? That's gonna seem actually completely fake and forced. You don't want to do that. So you have to use some restraint. Positive speech is not something that should be used all the time. But that doesn't mean that you should use negative or hate speech when you stop using positive speech. Instead, it means that you should learn how to express feelings, upset, disappointment, anger, jealousy, frustration, anything like that. It means that you should learn to express these feelings in appropriate, respectful ways. Okay, and then that would tie into increasing the bond or the feeling that you have within that community, and in turn strengthens the community. If you learn how to disagree with someone respectfully, or to tell someone respectfully that you need some space or you need some time, or to say thank you, but no thank you. Thank you, but no thank you has that rude connotation. But if you say, thank you very much for your input, I think I'd like to try a few more times independently to see if I can figure it out, and then maybe come back to you if I need some extra help. That's a way of thanking someone, but at the same time, letting them know that you still want to give it that independent try without hurting feelings, without being rude. It's a really important function, because polite speech within our educational community is really just role-playing for the real world. Now, I'm not going to say that you should necessarily cite Karen memes in your defense of this, but at the same time, there is that old axiom or saying that you catch more flies with honey. In other words, if you have a problem and you're polite about it and sweet when you are talking about your problem, you're more likely to get it resolved. Okay, so these are all things that you could consider as you write your response to this prompt. You're looking at a specific community, and you're looking at the function of polite speech. You've got several ideas. We've written a few down, including a way that we can say, hey, this doesn't mean that you can only use polite speech and that you all become Stepford characters, or you know, these automatic robots who only know how to be polite. But it means that you learn new ways of dealing with these other emotions or feelings, and learning that it's okay to express displeasure, but you can still do that in a way that's responsible and polite and effective. Okay. All right, we've got all of our information jotted down. We are organized, and we are ready to begin writing. I'll see you guys next time.